mentioned last week, my wedding wasn't especially book-themed, but there were elements of bookishness to it. For my bridesmaids' gifts, I got them stacks of books. I shot the following footage before the wedding, but for obvious reasons, I didn't want to ruin the surprise for my bridesmaids. I'm sharing it with you now, after the wedding. So I'm closing in on my wedding really quickly here. And I just have a couple more things to plan. And one of those is my bridesmaids' gifts. And I thought I'd share that with you because it's something we all love, which is books. Yes, I'm getting my bridesmaids books for the bridesmaids' gifts. And I'm going to share all of them with you. Starting off with the maid of honor, my sister Rebecca, the librarian extraordinaire. I'm getting her the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer because, as we all know, I've said before, she once entertained us for an entire Christmas morning just retelling the story of the Iliad. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. My sister loves Jane Austen. She once spent a semester at Oxford, and one of the classes she took was entirely on Jane Austen. This beautiful copy of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. It's a great memory of me and her listening to my dad read this story aloud to us as kids. My two last books for Rebecca have not come in, and hopefully they get here before the wedding, but they're another Jane Austen book, Persuasion, because the heroine in that book really reminds me of her. And then also Anne of Green Gables, another book that my dad read aloud to both of us as children. Up next, my childhood partner in crime, my other sister Emily. For her, I got The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, a book that her and I read many times together. Terran Wanderer by Lloyd Alexander, a book which she introduced me to saying it's really depressing, and I read it and thought it was one of the greatest, most philosophical books I ever read. So this is for you, Emily. Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Reed, a wonderful fantasy, which is also one of the most hilarious books I've ever read, and you should read it. The Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis, both mine and I think Emily's favorite book from the Narnia series, and one that we heard my dad read out loud to us many times when we were kids. And finally, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. My sister was a tomboy, and when I discovered her as a teenager reading this book, she blushed really deeply because I'd caught her reading a romance novel, in her opinion, and she hid it under her bed. It was really cute. My next bridesmaid is my college roommate, Melissa, who was a history major and in love with American history. So I got some books which I thought were apropos of that. I got her this beautiful leather-bound copy of the Gettysburg Address and other Abraham Lincoln writings, this copy of Thomas Paine's Common Sense from the Revolutionary War era, this honking big copy of the Constitution of the United States of America, plus other selected writings of the Founding Fathers, because obviously our Constitution isn't quite this big. Don't worry, I also got her some fiction. I got her Wolfskin by Juliette Marillier. Juliette Marillier really changed my mind about historical fiction. So I got Melissa this book because it's set in the Viking era, and I thought that would be something that she might enjoy. Finally, this gorgeous copy of Vanity Fair. I don't know if she's read Vanity Fair yet, but when I read it, I thought about her because it has this entire section on the Battle of Waterloo and totally changed the way I looked at the Battle of Waterloo. So I thought for the history major, this is perfect. And finally, my 14-year-old soon-to-be sister-in-law, Yena. And as she's 14, I got her a pile of my favorite YA fiction ever. Brightly Woven by Alexandra Bracken, Graceling by Kristen Kashori, The Host by Stephanie Meyer, The Demon King by Cinda Williams-Chena, and finally, The City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. So now that I've told you what books I'm giving them, I'm now going to write personal notes in each of these and then bind them up with some ribbon. Finally! So I thought Melissa would really enjoy reading this book, which is set in the Viking area,